Paralyzed deaf girl signed, "Please help me," minus what the single dad did next left everyone in tears. The Christmas lights along Maple Street had always been my favorite part of December. Even now, minus even from down here, from the height of a wheelchair, with the cold biting through my green velvet dress, and the snow gathering in little drifts against my wheels, minus they were still beautiful. Tiny golden stars strung between lampposts, glowing warm against the gray winter sky. They reminded me of a version of my life I used to know. A version where I stood on 2 feet, where I could call out to people, where I didn't have to work twice as hard, just to exist in a world that was never designed for me. My name is Serena Calloway. I am 29 years old. I lost my hearing at age 7 minus a fever that came in fast and left everything quiet forever. I lost the use of my legs 3 years ago. The result of a car accident that the doctors called catastrophic and that I simply called Tuesday minus because that was the day it happened. And because some things are so big that giving them dramatic names only makes them heavier to carry. I had learned, slowly and stubbornly, to carry mine lightly. That evening, I had wheeled myself 3 blocks from my apartment to pick up the Christmas gift I had special ordered for my younger sister. Lily, a hand-carved jewelry box with the words, "You were never too much, minus you were always just enough," engraved on the lid. She had been having a hard year. I wanted her to open something on Christmas morning that made her feel seen, but when I arrived at the shop, I realized 2 things almost simultaneously. 1, the gift was ready and waiting. 2, the door had no automatic opener. Just a heavy brass handle, a steep threshold lip, and approximately 4 inches of accumulated snow packed against the base of the frame. I sat there for a moment, studying the door the way I once studied calculus problems, minus methodically, looking for the angle, the solution, the path through. I reached forward and tried to pull it. The wheel of my chair rolled back. I braced. Tried again. The door was heavier than it looked, and the snow was working against me like a quiet little enemy. I raised my hands and knocked against the glass. Nobody inside noticed. A couple walked by without slowing down. A woman in a red coat glanced at me, glanced away. I understood. People don't always know what to do when they see someone struggling. Sometimes it is easier to look at the Christmas lights instead. I took a breath. And then I did what I always do when the world makes me work for it, minus I tried again. I positioned my chair at a slight angle, gripped the handle, and pulled with everything I had. The door cracked open, maybe 2 inches before my right wheel slipped on a patch of ice, hidden beneath the snow, and I lurched sideways, arms shooting out instinctively. That is when the door swung wide from the other side minus, and suddenly there was a man standing in the frame, tall, dark coat, brown hair with the kind of dishevelment that comes from a long day and not from trying. He was holding the door open with one hand, and with the other, he was steadying me minus his palm flat and firm against my forearm, making sure I didn't tip. Behind him stood 3 little girls. They were dressed in holiday coats minus one crimson red, one deep pink with white fur trim, one smaller one in a matching set minus, and they were watching me with the wide, serious eyes that only children and very old people seem to have. The eyes that actually look. The man's gaze met mine. I saw the moment he understood that I couldn't speak, not because I looked different or broken minus, but because I didn't say thank you out loud the way most people would have. I just looked at him and my hands moved. "Thank you," I signed. Simple. 2 words. He blinked. He didn't understand ASL minus, I could tell immediately. But he didn't look away, didn't look embarrassed, didn't offer me the particular tight-lipped smile that people give when they want the interaction to be over. He just held the door wider and looked at me like he was waiting, like he had time, like I mattered. My hands moved again, slower this time. Though I knew it wouldn't help. Signing slower doesn't make it more understandable. Minus it is not a volume problem. Minus but something about his attention made me try anyway. Then I stopped. I reached into the small bag hooked to the back of my chair and pulled out the notepad I always carry. I wrote quickly, "I can't speak. I am deaf. Thank you for opening the door. I just need to get inside to pick up an order." I held it up. He read it. And then he did something that made my chest go still in the best possible way. He turned to his daughters. "Girls," he said minus. I read his lips minus. "This lady needs some help. What do we do when someone needs help?" The oldest girl, who couldn't have been more than 9, straightened her spine, like a soldier receiving an assignment. "We help," she said. Lips easy to read, voice clear. "That is right," he said. And then he turned back to me, and he pointed to the threshold minus the lip of the door, the little ridge of metal and snow that had been standing between me and the inside of a warm shop minus, and raised his eyebrows in a question. "May I?" I nodded. He knelt down in his good dark coat right there on the wet, snowy sidewalk, and with his bare hands he swept the snow away from the threshold. Then he looked up at the youngest girl minus the tiny one, maybe 4 years old minus, and said something I didn't catch. She nodded very seriously and ran back inside the shop. 30 seconds later, a shopkeeper appeared with a rubber wedge doorstop. The man wedged the door open. He stood, brushed the snow from his knees without any fuss, and gestured with a small, simple wave after you. I wheeled inside. The shop was warm and smelled like pine and cinnamon. The shopkeeper, a soft-eyed woman named Ruth, according to her name tag, was already at the counter, pulling out a neatly wrapped box. She signed hello to me minus just that one word, and not perfectly. But I felt it like a small bright light minus, and I wondered if she'd Googled it quickly on her phone, if she'd been quietly preparing since she saw me coming. Behind me, the man and his 3 daughters had followed me inside, not in an intrusive way, not hovering, just minus there, looking at the ornaments on a small display table near the door, letting the youngest touch a glass snowflake that spun slowly on its hook. I collected my gift. Ruth helped me tuck it securely into the bag on my chair. I turned to leave. The man was crouching beside his youngest daughter, showing her something on the ornament rack. He looked up when I turned, and I stopped. I pulled out my notepad again. "Can I ask your name?" He read it and smiled minus a real one, a little tired around the edges, the smile of someone who has carried things too, but hasn't let the weight make him mean. He took the pen I held out, wrote below my question, "Marcus, these are my girls minus Ellie, Jade, and Rosie. Rosie's the brave one who ran for the doorstop." I looked down at Rosie. She was maybe 4, maybe 5, with a halo of blonde curls escaping from her pink coat hood. She was looking at me with those serious child eyes, and then, slowly, very deliberately, she raised her little hand and waved, not a casual wave, a real one. A hello, I see you wave. I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't known was tight. I raised my hand and signed hello back. Rosie looked up at her father immediately, mouth open, asking a question I couldn't hear. He responded, lips moving. She looked back at me. Then she put both her small hands together and pulled them apart slowly, minus something she had clearly just been told. A baby attempt at a sign, "Probably nice to meet you," minus the shape was wrong. But the intention was so completely right that I had to press my lips together to hold myself steady. I wrote one more note. "Your girls are wonderful, Marcus. You are doing something really right." He read it, and I watched his face do something quiet and private minus a softening, a kind of grateful recognition minus, and I thought about how single parents carry a specific kind of lonely, how they wonder sometimes, in the dark, if they're enough, if they're teaching the right things, if their kids will remember the good parts. I hoped he would remember this. I hoped his girls would too. I wheeled out into the cold. The Christmas lights were still there, still gold, still strung between the lampposts, like small patient stars. I sat for a moment on the sidewalk before heading home. the wrapped jewelry box warm in my bag, and I thought about Lily and what I was going to write in her card. I thought about Marcus and his 3 daughters, who had knelt in the snow and run for a doorstop, and waved hello with 2 small, serious hands. I thought about how the world is not always designed for people like me minus, and how some days that is a cold, hard, exhausting fact, and how some days a man holds a door open, and a little girl learns a sign, and the gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be gets just a little bit smaller. I pulled out my notepad one last time. I wrote to no one in particular minus just to myself, just to keep it. Today was a good day. Gowie, so. Then I wheeled home through the snow, past the lights, through the beautiful, cold quiet that has been my world for 22 years minus, and it felt, for the first time in a long time, not like absence. It felt like peace. Sometimes the smallest acts of human kindness are the ones that last the longest. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded, minus you don't need to change the whole world. You just need to hold the door open.